She lifted her wineglass with practiced poise. "We're ashamed of you," she said. And just like that, the room froze. Forks paused midair. Eyes darted away. The crystal lights trembled against a silence sharp enough to cut. I didn't flinch. "My name is Clara Wells, and I've heard this tone all my life." The too red lipstick, the too tight smile, the same expression she wore the night she declared I'd never be anything. But tonight felt different. Something inside me had finally stopped bending. I wasn't a child anymore. This time, I was ready. When I was 8, I drew her in crayon, bright smile, brown hair, a gold star on her shirt. I wrote my hero beneath it and taped it crookedly on the fridge. She tossed it out overnight. "Crooked," she said. My brother's medals stayed. My sister's ribbons stayed. Everything of mine disappeared quietly, efficiently, as if my existence embarrassed her. Praise lived in other rooms. I survived without it. She called it tough love, but it felt more like conditioning, training me to shrink, to stay small. "Earned my scholarship?" "Lucky," she said. "Bought my first apartment?" "Don't show off." "Startup failed?" "No hook. I told you so." Her voice was always ready for failure, almost eager. I watched her carefully. Holiday seating charts, color-coded menus, rehearsed photos. Admiration was her oxygen, control her drug. Nothing terrified her more than losing it. I observed quietly, counting the cracks beneath the polished stories, the little humiliations she used to maintain her throne. Meanwhile, I rebuilt myself. Slowly. Nights and weekends became my forge. Failures didn't break me, they shaped me. Day by day, I grew inside the shadows she tried to cast. I moved into my own apartment. No help. No applause. Just mine. A space her voice couldn't touch. Then came Christmas. Perfect tree, curated food, every detail screaming her control. I arrived late. On purpose. Her smile tightened. The room shifted. My siblings watched, like I carried a storm inside. She leaned close, feigning sweetness. "You look tired," she said. I smiled. "It's been a productive year." She boasted about my siblings' successes, then turned to me, glass in hand. "And you? Still chasing those little projects?" I didn't answer. Silence became my sharpest weapon. She hated it. And that silence was only the beginning. Something in the air was about to shift. I wasn't the fragile child she'd trained. This time, the storm was mine to command. The room had fallen into a quiet tension, the kind that made even the tiniest movements feel loud. She swirled her wineglass, the ruby liquid catching the light, and smiled like a queen surveying her court. "Still chasing those little projects?" she repeated, as if testing my reaction. I didn't respond. Silence had become my weapon, my shield. My voice where words once failed me. I remembered the years of quiet endurance. How every misstep, every small achievement, was measured against her impossible standards. I had learned to move like a shadow, careful not to disturb, careful not to exist too brightly. And yet, all those years of shrinking, of bending myself into shapes she approved of, had finally forged something stronger inside me. Her laughter rang out again, brittle and sharp. She recounted my brother's promotion, my sister's engagement, the new boat my uncle financed. Each compliment she offered was a coin she expected credit for. And then her eyes met mine. Bright. Hungry. Mean. And that familiar tension settled over the table, like a storm cloud waiting to break. "You know," she said, tapping her glass with perfect rhythm. "We're proud of our successful children. But you," she let the pause linger, stretching it, savoring the discomfort. "You're harder to explain." I breathed slowly, calm, measured, waiting. Every fiber of my being refused to crumble this time. I had watched her closely for years, catalogued her manipulations, studied the cracks beneath her polished image. Holiday seating charts. Rehearsed smiles. The little lies she told to keep her throne safe. I had counted them all. The world she had built on control, and fear began to tremble that night, imperceptibly at first. I placed my napkin on the table. Slow. Deliberate. Final. The sound of it barely echoed, yet it carried weight heavier than her words ever could. Forks hovered midair. Glasses paused. Her face betrayed the slightest flicker of uncertainty. "You want honesty?" I asked softly. Let's try it for once. Her sharp smile twitched. Sit down, Clara. You're overreacting, she said. No. Irapi. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The truth had gravity. I've spent years watching you polish your image. Perfect mother, perfect family, perfect Christmas. But perfection leaves bruises you can't see. You've called me a failure for sport. And now, I paused, letting my words settle like dust in the quiet room. I stopped being ashamed of you a long time ago. A tear ran down her cheek. Real. Raw. Undeniable. For the first time, she had no script. The air was charged with something she had never anticipated. A woman unbroken, ready to speak truth, and a family about to witness the unraveling. The silence stretched, heavy and tense. She blinked, caught off guard, her carefully rehearsed composure beginning to crumble. I could see it in the slight tremor of her hands, the way her lips parted and closed without forming words. For years, she had relied on my compliance, on my shrinking into shadows while she commanded the spotlight. Tonight, that pattern was breaking. Her eyes searched mine, uncertain, almost fearful. I had never seen her like this. A mother who thrived on control, suddenly exposed to the weight of her own actions. I didn't speak immediately. I let her feel the absence of my submission, the absence of fear I had carried for decades. You ignored me when I excelled. I said finally, each word deliberate. You mocked me when I stumbled, and humiliated me when you needed an audience. You didn't raise confident children. You raised frightened ones, mistaking fear for respect. My sister's hands fidgeted in her lap. My brother's gaze stayed fixed on his plate, tight with years of unspoken tension. The room was frozen, each breath heavy with unspoken truths. She had built her empire of perfection, and now it was unraveling silently, quietly but unmistakably. I stepped closer. My presence wasn't loud, but it carried authority. You said you're ashamed of me. But the truth is simple. I stopped being ashamed of you a long time ago. Her eyes glistened with tears. A mother who had always projected power and superiority, now reduced to vulnerability. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked, betraying every word she had rehearsed for years. I didn't comfort her. That role was no longer mine. I simply stood there, watching the woman who had tried to shape me falter under the weight of her own choices. The room held its breath, each sibling caught in the quiet tension, the realization dawning that the hierarchy they had known was fragile. The control she had exercised with precision, over years of holidays, celebrations, even mundane conversations, was slipping. And I was the quiet force tipping the balance. No one moved. No one spoke. Not even her. And in that silence, I found the freedom I had been denied for so long. The air shifted. The unspoken power dynamics wavered. For the first time, I wasn't performing. I wasn't shrinking. I was simply free. But freedom has consequences. And the next steps, texts, calls, and confrontations, would test not only her understanding, but the boundaries I had finally claimed. The night settled quietly outside, snow drifting lazily past the window, while inside, messages began to arrive. Her name flashed repeatedly on my phone, each ping a reminder of the storm I had stirred. But I didn't answer immediately. The control she had once wielded over me was gone. Now I set the pace. Her texts were short at first, angry, accusatory. You humiliated me. No apology. No reflection. Only the familiar cloak of self-pity. I let them sit unread, letting the cold seep into the spaces she once filled with fear. 2 days passed. Then a second wave. My heart hurts. You didn't have to do that. Still no ownership, still no truth. I left them alone. By the end of the week, her words changed. Guilt crept in. Then silence. My brother called, voice trembling, unrecognizable. She won't stop crying, he said. She keeps asking what she did. She thinks you hate her. I stared out at the drifting snow. I don't hate her, I said softly. I just stopped protecting her story. He murmured about family, forgiveness, and keeping peace. Words we had all been trained to obey. But I wasn't eight anymore. I wasn't afraid. Later, she tried again, her voice small, uncertain. Clara, can we talk? This time, her tone lacked superiority, lacked control. It was hesitant, human, the voice of someone finally realizing fear does not equal love. I listened as she rambled through excuses, half apologies, polished stories that crumbled under the weight of their own lies. When she paused, I spoke calmly. I didn't hurt you. You hurt yourself when cruelty became your habit. No teatrix. No audience. Just truth. For the first time, she sobbed softly. Not performance, not manipulation. Just a woman confronting what she had avoided for decades. I didn't comfort her. That wasn't my role anymore. Silence was enough. Silence healed. Days passed, nights softened, and the quiet that once felt heavy became earned. I wasn't avoiding my family. I was choosing myself. A choice I had never allowed myself to make. Boundaries replaced obedience. Freedom replaced fear. She still sets a place for me at Christmas. Sometimes she stares too long. Sometimes she cries. That's her work, not mine. My healing doesn't depend on recognition. It depends on my truth, my boundaries, my voice. I didn't break the family. I broke the cycle. And now, for the first time, I am free, untouchable not because I control others, but because I finally control myself. Sometimes, the hardest battles are silent. The quietest victories are the ones no one sees. And the strength to claim your life begins the moment you stop bending to someone else's story. Share this with someone who needs courage tonight. And don't forget to subscribe to Twist Revenge for the next story that will keep you on the edge of your seat.